In today's video, we will be comparing the most popular APS-C hybrid cameras available on the market today. That being the 26 megapixel Sony A6700, the 32 megapixel Canon R7, and also the 40 megapixel Fujifilm XT5. For photos, we'll be comparing the raw and edited files side by side each other, as well as resolution and much more. For video, we will be comparing the log profiles, the 4K footage, and quickly touching on the difference between the stabilization of these three APS-C hybrid cameras. We'll also be looking at the autofocus for both photo and video, the overall build and ergonomics, what lens options are available, and I'll also give you guys a conclusion to help you guys out if you're on the fence to get a Sony, a Fujifilm, or a Canon camera. So we have a lot of information and examples to get through, so let's just jump right into it. Yeah, hold that. Looking this way again? Yeah, hold that. Yeah, I love this. I took all three of these cameras on a recent portrait shoot, and I really wanted to get the same full frame field of view of 35mm. So on the Sony, I used the Sigma 23mm f1.4. On the XT5, I used the Fujifilm 23mm f2, and on the Canon, I had to use the full frame Sigma 24mm HSM lens along with the EF to RF adapter. And to keep it even, I shot all of these images and video examples at f2. I really did want to use only native lenses on these three bodies, but unfortunately only Fujifilm have a fantastic APS-C lens range. While Sony do have a few good options for native APS-C lenses, majority of their good lenses actually come from third party like Sigma and Viltrox. But Canon, for whatever reason, still does not have any third party support for their RF mount system. And at the time of recording this video, they only have 3 APS-C lenses for the Canon RF-S system, and I think they're pretty unattractive lenses and they would definitely not work well for portraiture. You still can't even get a 24, a 35, a 50, and an 85 f1.4 L series lens at the time of recording this video, even though that the RF system came out in 2018. But the EF to RF adapter actually works really well. And the older Sigma 24mm is a little bit softer than the newer and faster digital native lenses. Yeah, hold that. There isn't really any major difference in autofocus between all three of these cameras for photography and video. Each camera does have really fast and snappy eye autofocus, and I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary on the day of the shoot. If you twist my arm for me to tell you which one was better, I would actually say that the Sony was better purely for the fact that that lens, the Sigma 23mm f1.4, is super fast and it's a very sharp lens. So the autofocus system is great, and it is really dependent on what lens you get for your camera. I'd also quickly like to let you guys know about a software that I've been using for the last 2 years to cull my photos called Narrative Select. Now, Narrative Select definitely are not sponsoring this video, but I am an affiliate of the company. And this is a tool that I use to tell if a lens or a camera body's autofocus is hitting the mark, because it does show me how well the eye is in focus, letting me pick the sharpest photo. Narrative Select also helps me out with my file organization for videos like this and when I'm traveling abroad, and also for weddings, because I can separate my files from camera manufacturers, different lenses, and also different dates. And I can also export my selects straight into Lightroom. And the best part is that you actually get 6 projects to try out for free. So if this is something you're interested in, there is a link in the description down below. Look at this way, Ken. Yeah, that's beautiful. Look at this way. Now, before we dive deep into the image quality for photo and video, I want to compare the build and ergonomics of these free APS-C hybrid cameras, as this is an issue that I see a lot of people don't consider before buying a camera. And I think the Canon R7 is the most ergonomic. It's like holding a full frame body, and I really like how Canon have nice curves and rounded edges. I really like the menu system for photography. It's minimal and very easy and intuitive to use. The R7 comes with 2 SD card slots and also a joystick. But one thing that really frustrates me is that it only has 2 exposure wheels. Most cameras have 3 exposure wheels for adjusting your ISO, your shutter speed, and also your aperture. The XT5 also only has 2 wheels on the body, but Fujifilm have done a very clever thing with their retro designed lenses with aperture dials on the lens. The XT5 is a very small and compact camera, and they actually did a really fantastic job with the size and the ergonomics of the grip. It has the largest and the highest resolution of a viewfinder out of these 3 cameras. You also get the 2 card slots and also a joystick, but the menu is a little bit confusing, but it's definitely not as bad as Sony. A6700 along with other Sony cameras have pretty involved and technical menu systems. And I do see the frustration and the problems people have with the menu system, but you can actually customize everything, and you can import LUTs, you can choose a bunch of different codecs and bit rates and video profiles, but you can also make a few mistakes when you use a Sony camera. And if you do own or you're thinking about picking up the A6700, I actually sell a full dedicated camera guide running you through and navigating this whole mess of a Sony menu system. Unlike the Fuji and the Canon, on the A6700 you do actually get those 3 dials for adjusting your exposure. It's definitely the smallest camera out of the 3, and it has the least comfortable grip. Unfortunately, you also don't get a joystick, and you only get that 1 SD card slot, making this camera a toy compared to the XT5 and the R7. As SD cards do corrupt, and if you don't have a double backup on the day, I wouldn't want to be you. Put your hand here just so we can see it. Yeah. Moving on to image quality, and when you compare the unedited RAW files next to each other, you can see there's a massive difference in white balance and color. I definitely prefer Sony's straight out of camera auto white balance compared to the cooler Canon and the very cool Fuji. But after I've gone in and manually matched the white balance between all of these 3 cameras, you can actually see that the colors are very similar, especially the skin tones. And this also shows after applying my preset. You could not really tell me which one is the Canon from the Canon colors. Every camera manufacturer definitely interprets color differently, and they have different color profiles. This really goes to show how much white balance has to do with the color profile, especially in the skin tones. I did notice how much more I could crop with the Fujifilm XT5's 40 megapixel and also the R7's 32 megapixel compared to the lower resolution of 26 megapixels on the Sony A6700. And I can see how the XT5's 40 megapixel APS-C sensor could have a huge benefit for APS-C shooters. But at the end of the day, all of these images look clean, they have great color, and also are very detailed. If you like the way that I've edited all of these photos in today's video, then check out my presets, which are linked down below. So with photo quality done, let's now move on to video, and let's start with the graded log profiles from each of these cameras. I think all of these log profiles look fantastic, they have great skin tones, and they also have plenty of dynamic range to play with. I didn't actually like any of the free LUTs online for the Canon and the Fujifilm, so I quickly just made my own that I linked for free down in the description down below. And if you want to pick up my full S-Log free pack, that is also linked in the description down below, and you can import these LUTs into your camera. The Fujifilm and the Sony is definitely a lot more flat, and you have much more compression in the waveform. While the Canon C-Log3 does look great, it just doesn't have as much dynamic range in the waveform compared to the Sony and the Fuji. If Canon would just please give us C-Log2 like you see in their higher end cinema cameras, then I think it would compete well. The 4K 25 frames per second out of all these cameras looks fantastic. If you want to get the downsampled 6.2K on the XT5, there is that 1.23 times crop. But the 4K 50 actually has a few points to touch on, as if you want to get that higher quality downsampled footage, there is quite a big crop. On the Canon, it's a 1.8 times, and on the Fujifilm, it's 1.56, which makes the sensor size used very small, and I just didn't want to have that much of a crop, as I wanted to have a consistent field of view. While the Sony A6700 has 4K up to 60 frames per second at a 6K capture. This results in a much sharper and cleaner image. While the Sony A6700 is the only camera out of the three that can record 4K 120 frames per second with a 1.2 times crop. The last point I want to touch on is how well the stabilization works between all three of these cameras. Canon has definitely been known for their dancing corners with wider lenses, but I didn't notice anything funny or out of the ordinary going on with the Canon R7. 35mm in full frame field of view kind of eliminates any of that wobble. And the IBIS on the R7 is actually pretty good. While setting up this camera, I was just turning it on and off to see if we got that wobble, and you can just see how much the IBIS is actually doing to the footage. I have no complaints with the XT5. It looks smooth with no wobbles and nothing out of the ordinary. The Sony is the only camera that captures that gyro data, meaning that if you have a shutter speed of 1/200 or higher, you can use a post-production software called Catalyst Browse, and you can stabilize your footage as much as you want. So in conclusion, on all three of these cameras and what I can recommend, the Canon R7 is a true professional camera, but it has no lens support. It has pro features like a fast mechanical shutter of 15 frames per second. The image quality for photos look fantastic. It has great video features, but I really can't see how I can actually recommend this camera because, like, what lens are you actually going to use? The Sony A6700 is not a professional camera, but it comes with professional image quality for photo and video. It has the best stabilization and decent native lens options, as well as the fantastic third-party lenses like what Sigma and Viltrox have made recently. Now, the XT5 is Fujifilm's most popular interchangeable lens camera on the market today, but it's definitely geared towards a more fun and travel photographer, as they have cameras that have the same sensor like the H2 that can record in 8K. They also have the H2S version that has a stack sensor that has incredible readout speed, and it's a fantastic video camera. I'll be releasing a full review on the XT5 next week, so if you guys want to see that video, make sure you subscribe. If you did like this video, hit that like button, that means a lot to me. I'd like to say a big thank you to Mitch Lally for filming this BTS on a very hot day in Brisbane, and also the model Kate. You did fantastic. It is really hot in here. I'm sweating up a storm. I've probably gone red, so I'm going to end the video there. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. 2 more videos till the end of the year. Let's go.